Story 1. I just received my last payment from this event, so I figured it was time to share the whole saga. Grab a drink and sit back, relax, and let me take you on this wild journey that all began. A long, long time ago, and not far down the street from here, my girlfriends and I were cruising up and down the main thoroughfare of our city, as teenagers that have just gotten their first cars tend to do. This is the main drag through the heart of our city, and it's where everyone would race on Friday and Saturday nights, kill time cruising before a movie, just hang out and be seen. We're driving along on a beautiful Friday afternoon when from the back seat, I spot a horde of teenage boys in a parking lot waiting for traffic to clear, so they can race. They've parked their crotch rockets and cars like they're for sale, every door open, hoods up, underglow shining, speakers blasting, and like half of these guys have their shirts off. Being a red-blooded teenage girl, I shout, "Oh my God, Kirsten, look!" But Kirsten was driving the car. To this day, we both try to take the blame for this because I should not have shouted for her to look, and she should not have turned around to look. So of course, we rear-ended the car in front of us at about 15 miles per hour. Not bad at all. We got out. Kirsten and Sarah called their moms from the parking lot, and I called the police while checking on the people in the other car. The passenger jumped out and pointed at me, told me to stay away, then went to the payphone. Yes, this happened that long ago, at the fast food joint we were in front of. I peeked into the car to ask the driver if they're okay. She was leaning all the way back in her seat. She wouldn't look at me, but she said she couldn't feel her arms. So I'm like, oh no, hey dispatch, send an ambulance, too. This lady says she can't feel her arms, and then I started freaking out. Did we just paralyze some poor woman because we're dumb, hormonal, carefree girls? Oh God, we just ruined somebody's life. I'm asking the driver if there's anything I can do. I think I actually asked if I could make her more comfortable. I panicked and just repeated to the dispatcher at that point, "Don't worry, the ambulance will be here soon." And then she turned her head towards me and asked who hit her. I was confused and asked her what she meant. She wanted to know which one of us was driving, but I didn't want to tell her for some reason. I was just like, no, don't worry about that, you'll be fine. And she wasn't having it. She got pissed and started screaming at me to tell her who was driving. So I just screamed back that she was crazy and I wasn't going to tell her anything. And then the dispatcher says, "Miss, please just back away from the vehicle." Swear to God, that dispatcher was psychic or something because I ducked out of the car right as the driver swung her meaty fist at my head. And then it was on. She ripped off her seat belt, ho, not paralyzed after all, and launched out of the car, running around the rear end to come at me. So I ran screaming around the front end. Straight out of a cartoon, she turned around and ran around the other side of the car, making me turn around to run the opposite way, back and forth around the front and back of the car until she committed to a side, and I just ran the other way to the parking lot. Kirsten was banging on the door of the fast food joint, but an employee was holding the door closed and shaking her head. I will never forget that poor woman's face. Sarah was on the phone crying. I could hear the sirens in the distance and dispatch was entirely too calm, asking me to explain the problem. On the 911 recording, you can just hear me panting, "What the heck, what the heck, what the heck," with every exhale. You guys, this woman was short, stout, and she ran like a juiced-up bull. She was so fast. I could feel her catching up to me, so I pivoted to the side and she whooshed past me, and she continued right towards Sarah, clothes-lined her as she ran by, and headed to Kirsten, who at this point had seen the writing on the wall and was running away. But there wasn't really anywhere to go, except the entrance of the drive-thru. So Kirsten and the enraged driver disappeared around the back of the building. I was picking Sarah up off the ground when an ambulance, fire truck, and 2 police cruisers pulled up. EMT popped out first, and we ran at him screaming nonsense about a crazy lady and the drive-thru. And then Kirsten came flying around the far corner of the building with beast mode right on her heels. I've never seen somebody stop so fast. She came out around the corner, saw all the emergency responders, stopped and dropped like a felled tree before pretending to shake uncontrollably. This lady tried to pull a fake seizure right in front of the EMTs and police. Her friend, the passenger, who had been on the payphone this whole time, dropped down next to her and started wailing that somebody needed to do something and help her and arrest us. Really coming hard with the dramatics. So the EMTs loaded her up and they went off to the hospital while the three of us gave our statements to the police. And we assumed that was the end. Insurance was supposed to deal with anything else, right? First, the driver tried to sue all three of us and the insurance company. Pain, suffering, medical bills, loss of income, the whole works. She claimed that after rear-ending her, I dragged her out of her car and Kirsten was actually chasing her through the drive-thru. The 911 recording disproved her claim of being pulled from the vehicle, and CCTV footage from the fast food restaurant showed her as the pursuer. The suit was eventually dismissed, and she had to pay our lawyer's fees. Which really sucked for her because Sarah's lawyer got photos of her frolicking at a music festival when she was supposedly suffering from whiplash, double knee injuries, and constant dizziness. Boom, that's insurance fraud. She spent a year in jail and paid a hefty fine, and we assumed that was the end. But no. A few months after she was released, we all began to find dead animals left on our front porches, in our mailboxes, in the swimming pool, hung over the side mirror of the car, etc. Definitely some unusual places to find dead animals. The phone calls started, hang-ups, faxes, random screaming. Kirsten swore she saw a car following her between school and the coffee house. Sarah thought she saw a similar car in her neighborhood a few times. We all knew who was doing it, but the cops couldn't really do anything without proof. Our parents were pissed because this was the dawn of the digital era and we all had cell phones, but crazy driver lady was blowing up the landline and it was harassing our parents more than us. And the dead animals were terrifying our siblings. So Kirsten's mom bought a guard dog and the next time somebody dropped a dead raccoon in their porch, Duke was going to give them what they came for. So everyone in Kirsten's house was sitting back enjoying a little TV one night, when a noise was heard in the bushes right before a dead squirrel was hurled through the open window. And Duke leapt right out the window and tackled crazy driver lady. She was dressed in all black, ski mask, gloves and everything. Literally the uniform of the nefarious. Kirsten said Duke had her whole shoulder in his big mouth and was pinning her down, while they called the police. She was hauled off to jail while the cops searched her car found down the road. They found meth, stolen credit cards, pills, a knife, trash bags, and cleaning supplies. To get her to plead to a whole slew of lesser charges, the prosecutor threatened to pursue kidnapping charges, even though it was a real stretch. She ended up being sentenced to 5 years, served 3. Thankfully, none of us have heard from her since. Story 2. So to explain, I was given for my birthday a Wrangler brand jean jacket, and upon getting this jacket, I took it upon myself to start hand sewing patches onto the jacket that I was gifted or had collected myself. This included a few video game patches, firearms company patches, and quite a few racing patches. I enjoy racing cars and have a number of patches for brands I support or I purchase parts from, including Summit, Turbo Blue, Holly, etc. Now this jacket in the condition it's in now is not cheap. To actually recreate it is probably a good couple $100 because a number of the patches are oldie rare and hard to get your hands on anymore. So obviously I wear this jacket everywhere and make sure all of the patches are tightly stitched to the fabric to prevent theft, loss, etc. I will use a seam ripper to remove Velcro from removable patches just so I can sew them right to the jacket. So as usual, I slipped my jacket on and went out to get lunch after class. I wear my jacket everywhere and just about every day on campus, and especially when I race. It even has my handle Smokey stitched into it, as this is what the people I race with call me. So parking my daily in the McDonald's parking lot, I hopped out, locked my truck and pocketed my keys. Entering the building, I noticed a few families but didn't pay them any mind. I just walked to the counter, waited for the mother and her daughter, who couldn't have been any older than 16 or so, to finish their order. When they were done, I requested 2 cheeseburgers and a Coke for there at the restaurant. As I was getting my drink, the mother walked up to me and started asking me about the patches. I'm used to this as a number are local brands, and those that aren't people question why I wear them, and I proudly explain my reasoning. This is how this conversation went. Entitled Mother, you have such a lovely jacket. Could you please tell me what racing fuel patch is for? Me, of course, it's a racing fuel I use for my car. I'm a small-time racer here locally, and I support their brand for making a wonderful product. Entitled Brat, you can't be a racer, you're too fat. To put it bluntly, I'm not the thinnest person in the world. I'm very broadly built, and I carry a bit of a gut I'm not entirely proud of. Me, anyone can be anything if they put their mind to it. I smiled at this young woman, and this seemed to end the brief conversation, so I walked to the counter and collected my food and sat down to eat. I figured this would be the end of this conversation and encounter. I wish I learned from reading this subreddit. As I was finishing up my second sandwich and started to throw my trash away, I felt something pull on my jacket. I didn't really think anything about it until I noticed that the tugging sharply changed into a jerking motion like someone was trying to pull the jacket off of me. Turning around, I noticed that the young woman was trying to get my attention, tugging on the hem of my jacket. Me, can I help you? Entitled Brat, could I try your jacket on, please? Me, I'm sorry, but no, I'd really rather not take it off. It has sentimental value. Entitled Brat, please? Just for a minute. What's the harm? I'll give you a hug if you do. Me, again, I'd really rather not. While your offer is sweet, I have to get back to campus for my classes, and like I said, this jacket is very special to me. From here things got odd as things went from normal to the girl screaming harassment, right there in the middle of this dinky McDonald's. And suddenly all eyes are on me and this girl. The mother, of course, is already dialing 911 as the girl keeps saying stuff about how I tried to molest her and was trying to force myself on her, all while I'm backing away from her saying I didn't even touch her. And I guess the mother figured now was a good time to amp the lies up. Entitled Mother, if you didn't touch her, why'd you take her boyfriend's jacket, pervert? Me, what the heck are you talking about? I walked in here wearing this jacket. Entitled Mother, no you didn't. Her boyfriend gave her that jacket. She wouldn't take it off for anyone. Now you're trying to steal from her too. And then the manager comes out. Hearing the claims of harassment, suddenly I'm being detained until the en route officers can sort out this mess, and the mother is still screaming into the phone with the operator, and the daughter is now bawling about how I groped her. Honestly, writing this, I'm so freaking angry at this point how there's basically no evidence, yet I have to remain to keep things from looking worse than they already do. So the cops arrive, and of course, still the same story from before. He stole her jacket and then started trying to harass her. And the minute the word harassment showed up, I was in cuffs, and oddly enough, the coat was removed. The cop then walked me out to her cruiser to get my information and figure out the full story, having taken the mother and daughter's statements already. Police officer, sir, do you have your ID on you today? Me, yes ma'am, it's in my wallet in my front pocket. Police officer, and can you please explain to me what happened on your side? Me, yes ma'am. I came in to have lunch. I spoke shortly with the girl's mother about my jacket and the patches. Afterwards, the daughter asked to try on my jacket. When I told her no, she ended up screaming harassment, and the mother started saying I'd stolen the jacket. Police officer, sir, can you prove that this jacket belongs to you? Here I was a little worried. The jacket is actually only branded with my racing title Smokey and not my legal name. But I remembered about that point that yes, I did have a way to prove it. Me, yes ma'am, please would you get out my wallet? As the officer pulled out my wallet, I directed her attention to the stitching I'd done on it, which also had my racing title on it in bright orange, matching the 3 or 4 places on my patches and the jacket that said the same. In the end, the mother and daughter were arrested and charged with inciting panic and falsifying a police report. He did get off basically scot-free, though I was warned to have my name stitched into articles of clothing that might enter this issue again in the future. After this, I stitched my name underneath a Velcro patch to make sure you could always know it was mine without someone directly seeing it. Story 3. A little background on this story. First, I have a fairly decent car for it being so old, 16-year-old Dodge Neon C, and I have zero interest in getting anything different since it's reliable, still gets great gas mileage, is completely paid off and handles great. It's blue with a massive rust spot on the rear passenger side just above the gas tank, but I don't care. It gives the car character, you know. Second, this story takes place in Michigan. Whereas anyone who lives here or has driven through here knows, the roads here suck. Potholes, uneven streets, and jagged pavement on every stretch of road you'll ever drive down. Getting a flat tire at least once in your life, while living here, is both a guarantee and a rite of passage. The flat tire detail is relevant. The cast: entitled parent, entitled brat, dealership owner, and me. I was driving through town after my shift at work and had to take a really bad street because that's all I had available to me. I do my best to avoid potholes, but I end up striking a few anyway, and lo and behold, my rear driver's side tire takes a hit. I can feel that something's wrong with the tire, so I pull off the road into the nearest open drive I could find. Turns out, I picked a used car lot and had plenty of room to inspect the damage. When I step out of the car to look at the tire, another car pulls into the lot behind me and proceeds to park on the other side. I noticed that the tire was low, but not flat, because fortunately that pothole only loosened the seal on the stem valve, and I could fix it with the can of Fix-A-Flat that I kept in my trunk. While I'm fussing with my tire, the dealership owner comes out to greet me, most likely assuming I'm there to either trade in my car or shop around. When he sees my tire is low, he insists I, slowly, pull my car further away from the side of the road and up toward the front of the dealership building out of safety concerns. I agree and move my car where instructed. Turns out, I was being watched by a dreaded entitled parent and her demonic spawn. Not long after I got my car moved up, the dealership owner was lending me a hand and helping with my tire, making sure the valve was secured and that the pressure was stable. I thanked him for his help and proceeded to sit back down in my car. As I put the key in the ignition, I hear something bang against my window and look up to see a woman, the stereotypical Karen, trying to get my attention. I roll my window down to see what she wants. My bad. Me: yeah? What's up? Entitled parent: are you through yet? Am I? What? Through. Are you through? Because my daughter's been waiting long enough. I look past her and see her 16-year-old daughter dressed in a dark mini skirt, white tank top, and 4-inch heels. This is February, by the way. She was also wearing so much cheap makeup you'd think she was auditioning for a role as the Joker. Me? Waiting for what? Entitled parent: don't act cute. She needs her turn. You've taken up enough of our time. What are you talking about? Are you stupid? Your test drive is over. Now it's my daughter's turn. The entitled brat is standing behind her entitled parent with her arms crossed over her chest and giving me a smug, "Wow, are all you commoners so stupid?" type of grin on her arrogant face. Me? Oh. I figured it out quickly and tried to defuse the situation. I wasn't on a test drive, I own. I said, get out. This is my car. No, it's not. I just saw you pull back into the lot. We were behind you the whole time, so don't try to lie to me. I wasn't. You didn't even go inside the building to sign the papers, so I know you're lying to me. You didn't buy this car. You're just being a stubborn little brat. No, this is my car. I have the... What is wrong with you? Get out now. No, this is my car. No, it's not. My daughter wants it, and I'm going to buy it for her right now. She tried to pull open my door, but thankfully I locked it when I got inside. Give me the key. Before I had the chance to say anything else, she reached through my window and made a grab for the key in the ignition. The key that was on a keyring with my apartment key and 4 other keychains, so clearly not the dealership's key. When she tried to pull it out, I grabbed her arm and pushed her back. Me? Get away. You little witch, you just assaulted me. I quickly roll up my window and I'm ready to turn over the engine and drive off when I see the dealership owner returning. Dealership owner, ma'am, what's going on? This little witch just assaulted me. Call the police. She attacked me because I told her to let my daughter have a test drive, and now she's trying to steal the car. The dealership owner looks at me, looks at my worn-out, dirty car with a faded bumper sticker on the trunk, and gives the woman the classic, "Are you serious right now?" stare. Ma'am, this car isn't for sale. This is her car. No, it's not. Until she signs the paper, it's not hers and my daughter wants to drive it. She just got her license and I promised her I'd get her a blue car. This is the only blue car in the lot. It was not. There was another blue car parked behind her. And yes, her 16-year-old daughter, who just got her license, was going to test drive a car in heels. Ma'am, this car isn't mine to sell. It already belongs to her. No, it doesn't. I saw her drive the car onto the lot, and I saw you telling her to pull up to the building. Stop trying to lie to me. She had a low tire. She pulled off. Why won't you let my daughter have her turn? She deserves her turn. Is it because my daughter isn't dressing like this witch? I'm wearing blue jeans, tennis shoes, a baggy shirt with Kirby, Nintendo, on it, and a green jacket over top. The only skin visible is on my hands, neck and face. Dealership owner, ma'am, stop. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. No, my daughter needs this car. I promised her, and all you're doing is wasting my time. I'm asking you nicely to leave before I call the cops. You do that, and I'm telling the cops that this witch assaulted me, pushed my daughter, and that you're selling stolen cars. Now, give my daughter this car right now or else. She actually said, or else, like a cartoon villain. Ma'am, leave. This is ridiculous. She pulled her phone from her purse and proceeded to call the cops herself. You're going to regret being so disrespectful to me. All you had to do was sell me this car. But no, you decided this witch was better than my daughter. My daughter deserves this car. I know I'm not in the wrong, but I'm still nervous. I look at the dealership owner through the windshield, and he gives me a look that says everything will be fine. Watch this. About 5 minutes later, a patrol car pulls up and the officer approaches the dealership owner. Before he even has the chance to ask any questions, the entitled woman starts shrieking at him at full volume. I want that witch arrested. She assaulted me and my daughter, and she's trying to steal my daughter's car. The cop is unfazed and just looks at me, then over to the dealership owner without blinking. Cop. Hey, dealership owner's first name, is this true? Not a word of it. And if you want you can check the lot's security cameras. Cop's first name. The entitled parent is fuming, and the entitled brat is just rolling her eyes like we were boring her or something. Why don't you believe me? You're not seriously going to take her word over mine. Just look at her. Cop. Ma'am, I need to get both sides of the story. Now, you said she tried to steal. Yes, that's my daughter's car. All right, fine. That's easy enough to prove. The cop walked over to the passenger's side of the door, on the opposite side from where the Karen was still seething, and motioned for me to open the door. I did, and he of course asked for my ID, my registration, and my proof of insurance. It didn't take the cop long to notice my name on the license and the name on the registration, which was also dated from almost 2 years ago, are a match. He just nods, hands me back my stuff, and closes the door. Cop. Ma'am, that's her car. Not possible. She just got her. She couldn't have signed the papers. Why are you all against my daughter? She needs a car. Ma'am, you do realize it's a crime to try to file a false police report. This car isn't stolen, and I seriously doubt she assaulted you. I'm going to look at the cameras. Karen tried to leave, but the officer wouldn't allow it. He looked over the footage, realized she was the one harassing me, and took her away in his car. I thanked the dealership owner and the cop before he left. After slipping me a business card, he joked that if I ever needed another car in the near future, he'd ensure that no crazy people were hiding in the trunk. Story 4. We have me, my brother, mom, and dad, as well as an entitled mom and her 2 kids, around 10 or so. I don't know, but they were definitely younger than my brother, who was 13 at the time. Around 5 years ago, we were taking a family vacation to the Midwest to visit my grandparents. It was pretty foggy that night, so we weren't surprised when they canceled our flight that evening. My dad went to the ticket counter and they issued us tickets for a new flight the next day, as well as some vouchers, and offered us a hotel for the evening. But my dad said we lived 30 minutes away, so that wasn't necessary. We collected our luggage after they unloaded the plane and went to our car in the long-term parking lot to load up and head home for the evening. We then heard a banging on the trunk and my door opened and one of the kids threw his bag in and told me to move over. Then the mother came to the driver's side window and knocked. When my dad rolled down the window, she looked in and said, "We need to get our luggage in the trunk. Can you open it?" Dad looked at her and said, "No, we're going home and not giving rides to anyone." By this time, I had thrown the kid's bag off my lap and out the door while he kept whining at me to move over. The mom looked around the interior and said, "You'd think the airline would provide a bigger car for 2 families." Dad then figured out that she was from our flight and said, "No ma'am, this isn't from the airline, it's our car, and we'd like to go home now." My mom, knowing that my dad and I have quick tempers, tried to defuse the situation by saying, "If the airline has a car for you, it's probably downstairs, or go back to the desk and ask again where it might be. They might even have a shuttle bus for you to a hotel." The mom scoffed and said, "Why do we have to settle for a bus when you got a nice BMW?" Dad said in an angry tone. "Lady, this is my car. I own it." Dad then pulled out and we drove home for the evening. The next day, we went back to the airport and the fog had lifted, so we were pretty sure we'd get out that day. Being first class, not trying to brag, just giving facts, we got on the plane first and sat down. Then, the mom and her kids got on, and as she passed us, she saw my brother and I already seated and sipping on our drinks. We were both underage, so they were probably Sprites or water. Don't remember. She also recognized my parents and summoned the flight attendant, and then asked her why we got compensated with first-class seats, while she and her kids were back in coach, and they had been inconvenienced as much as us, and her kids had never flown first class before. The flight attendant said that these were our seats, and they weren't compensation. I guess that instead of booking us on a pre-existing flight, they got a plane out of the hangar and made an entirely new flight. I could be wrong, but we got our original seats, so I don't know. It was a pretty uneventful flight, and after we had landed and were at baggage claim, Dad said, "I hope she doesn't see the car your grandparents are picking us up in." Don't know if she ever did. We got our bags and got picked up and never saw the lady again. Kept thinking throughout the trip we might run into her somewhere, but we never did. Story 5. About 10 years ago, I worked in a team of scientists, which is almost enough to drop the mic right here, when one day our boss told me others perceive me as contemptuous. I was shocked beyond words. I certainly did not feel superior or feel contempt for anyone. I was so flabbergasted I was silent for probably 2 solid minutes. I asked for an example of when something I had said or done gave someone that feeling. He said he couldn't divulge that information. Okay. Then I asked for an example he had experienced or observed himself. He said he had none. I said, "Since I have no clue what I've done, how am I supposed to adjust my behavior?" He said he didn't know. I said, "Basically then, I just need to not talk." He said he wasn't sure. I knew right then what to do. I am pretty introverted, and as a child I didn't talk for years. I rarely spoke until I was about 13 years old. Got lots of notes from teachers about how quiet I was. I would answer questions when directly asked, but rarely spoke otherwise. So, my malicious compliance in this situation was easy for me. I just stopped talking except when asked a question. I made a point of smiling, showing I was listening, nodding agreement, etc. I was extremely polite and agreeable. Pretty soon some big issues came up that I had specific knowledge about. I knew how to solve them, but no one else asked. A huge conflict came up between two of our labs because one group wanted it one way and the other group had a different opinion. They fought and fought. People were having secret meetings in their offices to try to win. And when they finally arrived at the action, they chose it was wrong. In fact, both groups were wrong, and the whole experiment failed. It's important to know no one was hurt. No property damage or anything like that. Just a lot of wasted time and expense on materials. But I never said a word. This went on for 3 weeks. The lab's budget had to be revised. They had to cut travel expenses, which I was okay with because I didn't want to travel anyway. So, no conferences for anyone. This is a big deal for a lot of researchers because it's how we gain notoriety to be able to get grants, among other things. Finally, a colleague asked me why I hadn't spoken for so long, why I was so quiet. Was something wrong? I explained about being told others perceive me as contemptuous. She had the same expression I did when I was told. She said she didn't believe anyone had said that about me. I honestly was surprised again because I believed our boss. Then she asked me what I thought about the experiment design and why it was failing. I told her about the solution I believed would work, which was actually surprisingly simple. She recognized it had a good chance of succeeding and asked me to share the idea at the next department meeting. At that meeting, she asked me again in front of everyone, and I repeated what I told her. Several people asked why I hadn't spoken up sooner. I explained I had been given feedback that indicated I caused others to feel uncomfortable. The whole table of colleagues also looked stunned at me. I said I was committed to not causing such bad feelings and couldn't figure out how to communicate because the feedback didn't give me any specific guidance. Everyone looked at the director at that point, and he said, "We shouldn't discuss personnel issues." It was my issue, so I said, "If anyone here perceives me as contemptuous and said as much to our boss, that's the reason I haven't been talking. If you don't feel that way about me, let me know and I will stop being silent." Someone else said we needed to hold a vote so there wouldn't be any more confusion or talking behind anyone's back. They voted 100% for me to talk normally and that they didn't agree that I was ever contemptuous. That director slowly stopped coming to work, month by month after this episode, until he was only showing up 1 day a week. Finally, he took a lab position elsewhere and one of my colleagues was promoted to director. And the experiment was a success. The next year I got a grant to keep the research going and paid for 2 people to be able to travel to the related conference to present our findings. Story 6. My parents bought a river stilt house next to theirs for me, which I'm truly grateful for. But my mom tends to rush decisions without thinking them through. She insisted I move in before a blizzard hit. Even though the house wasn't ready, there's no functional water or sewer yet. Her solution: I could just walk next door to their house whenever I needed a bathroom until my dad finished the plumbing, which she claimed would be done a day after I moved in. Knowing my dad, that timeline was unrealistic, but I went along with it. After 4 days of barely eating to avoid needing the bathroom, I finally had to eat something real. At 1 a.m., nature called urgently. I threw on my winter gear to head next door, only to find their door frozen shut. Desperate, I banged on the door until my mom opened it. Ignoring her lecture about waking them up, I sprinted to the bathroom. Later, she admitted maybe moving before the plumbing was done wasn't a great idea. Hopefully, she'll think things through next time, though I won't hold my breath.